Good afternoon, and some great news for foreign visitors who want to travel domestically, and that's coming up in just a second. Selamat siang. Welcome to the latest news from Bali and Indonesia. This is August 29th, 2022, and my name is Bruce. And as I said, great news. There is a new SE out, and it is good news for those that want to travel in Indonesia but have not gotten the booster and don't want to get a PCR test. And that is coming up in just a minute. It is the main story. But first, what's the weather like? It is Sunday afternoon. I'm doing this early because this is really good news, and I'm hoping to get this out tonight or at the latest early tomorrow morning. And it is overcast slightly and a little warm. It is 30.5 degrees Celsius. Wind speed is 8.4 kilometers per hour, and the humidity is 57%. What about the numbers on this lovely Sunday? National new cases, 4,170. National recoveries, 2,514. National deaths, 15. Bali new cases, 82. Bali recoveries, 146. Bali deaths, 2. So numbers are stable. Positivity rate, still stable too, 10.1% for the weekly positivity rate last week. And so no news is good news on COVID. But there's stories about what other countries are doing, and things are loosening up, and they're loosening up here. And so let's talk about this new SE. Okay, this is SE number 24, year 2022, domestic travel effective 25th of August. So a few days ago, although I saw a story yesterday night that said that they were just getting ready to do this at the airport because they were waiting for some notification. So see what happens there. What is the big change? The big change is that foreign travelers, people who are coming here from overseas and are foreigners, may travel around the country with only 2 shots. So you need 2 shots to get in, right? And you can travel around the country with 2 shots. No more booster needed, no more PCR test if you don't have the booster. And so that makes a lot of sense. So what are the main points here? Main points. 18 years and over must have received a 3rd dose. Now that is for Indonesians. And there is a question about where people like me, for example, fit in. I'm not coming here from overseas. I've been here for a long time. And so our residents, foreign residents, are we in the same boat as Indonesian citizens? That is, that you have to have a 3rd dose to travel? Some people say yes, some people say no. As usual, when these SCs come out, there's always questions about this. And so this was not addressed directly in here, as far as I can tell, and there's a link to the SC down below, as always. My reading of it is, if you have a KITAS or a KITOP, you've got to have the booster to travel. If you have the B211, I'm guessing that you don't, but I'm not sure because it doesn't really make that clear. It says, and I'll get to that right now, it says, domestic travelers with the status of a foreign citizen originating from overseas travel, age 18 and over, are required to have received the 2nd vaccine. Nothing about the PCR. PCR tests are out for everybody. They're gone, thank goodness. So it says originating from overseas travel. So if you've got a B211, you originated from overseas travel. So I'm assuming that this applies to you and it does not apply to me. But we'll have to wait and see if there's some clarification on it. Next point, domestic travelers aged 6 to 17 years must have received a 2nd dose of the vaccine. That's not for foreigners, that's for Indonesians. Age 6 to 17 from overseas travel are exempt from mandatory vaccinations. And children under 6 years old are excluded from the requirements for vaccination, but they are required to travel with an adult who has completed all the necessary requirements. So if you're coming here from overseas and you've got kids, yeah, they don't have to show any vaccinations and they can travel anywhere they want with you. and you just have to have your 2 vaccinations and you can go wherever you want. So this takes care of that big issue that people were saying, look, I can get into the country with just 2 shots, but then if I want to travel domestically, I've got to have 3 or get the PCR test. Wow, that's going to put a dent in people coming in and wanting to go to different islands, Lombok, Raja Ampat, wherever, Java. So the way I'm looking at this SE24 is that this is out to address that issue. It's specifically for foreigners who are coming in and want to travel around, because what is Pac Santiago Uno doing? I've talked about this many times, right? He's talking about the 5 super destinations, and he wants people to travel to them. Well, the old SE23, which is no longer used anymore, that said that you had to have 3, right? So it was restricting some domestic travel on the part of foreign visitors. And so I'm taking it that this is why this is here. PCR and rapid tests are no longer applicable, and so they're out. People with special health conditions, comorbid diseases, and who cannot get the vaccination are no longer required to show a PCR test, but you do have to have a doctor's certification from a government hospital, and then you can travel. This circular is in effect from the 25th of August until a time determined later, and will be evaluated in accordance with the latest developments in the field. Okay, and so good news. You can travel around, and there's more good news in other countries, and I'm going to get to that in segments coming up, so don't go away. And what has Pac Santiago been up to? He's always up to something. Tourism Minister approaches New Zealand on possible cooperation. The Tourism and Creative Economy Minister, Pac Santiago Uno, in an official statement this Wednesday said that New Zealand is seen as a strategic market to help grow Indonesia's tourism. Antara News reported data from Statistics Indonesia in 2018 that New Zealanders who visited Indonesia grew by 14%, equivalent to 128,325 tourists, not too bad, with an average length of stay from 10 to 11 days. Pac Santiago said, if this opportunity is optimized, the Indonesian tourism and creative economy will be able to rise again and boost new job opportunities by 1.1 million quality jobs. And those are the jobs I was talking about the other day in the last video, I think. He continued, because the tourism and creative economy sector has become the home for 40 million Indonesians. 40 million Indonesians, that's about 1/7 of the population. He claimed Indonesia has approached New Zealand in hopes of establishing cooperation in the tourism sector, which includes flight frequency, the strategy of presenting quality and environmentally sustainable tourism, sharing best practices with educational institutions between the 2 countries, digitalization, and marketing strategies. Pac Santiago also asked New Zealand to support the success of the 2022 G20 presidency hosted by Indonesia. And New Zealand's ambassador to Indonesia, Kevin Burnett, was grateful for the opportunity to have a dialogue about collaboration opportunities in the tourism and creative economy sectors. So will we be seeing more people from New Zealand in the future? Let's hope so. And here is an interesting story about Singapore, and I will get to why it's interesting in a minute in case you don't pick it up right away. Singapore to drop most indoor mask requirements next week. So for the first time in more than 2 years, people in Singapore will no longer be required to wear masks indoors except on public transport and in high-risk settings like healthcare facilities. Listen to this one. The health ministry also updated rules for non-vaccinated travelers, dropping a 7-day quarantine requirement starting next week. No quarantine for non-vaccinated travelers. That's what Singapore is doing. Are we going to see this in the future in Indonesia? I know that there are a lot of people that don't want to get vaccinated who want to come here, and well, the government has not been open to doing that, and who knows, maybe they'll follow Singapore's lead. What do you think about that? Should we be letting non-vaccinated travelers into Indonesia? I know that there's a lot of opinions on this one. About 70% of Singapore's 5.5 million population has already contracted COVID-19, according to the health minister. And he said the reinfection rate is so far very low. Singapore's vaccinated more than 90% of its population and has among the lowest COVID-19 mortality rates in the world. Well, they have a great healthcare system there. And what about Japan? Now, Japan has been one of the strictest countries in the world in terms of letting foreigners in and including their own citizens. Japan to waive pre-departure COVID tests for vaccinated travelers. Daily caps on entrance is going to remain the same, according to the Prime Minister, Kishida. Up until the change of the rules, Japan has required travelers to prevent a negative coronavirus test taken within 72 hours of departure. Starting September 7th, we will no longer require people who have been vaccinated 3 times to present proof that they are not infected. Okay, so lightening up on things in Japan. Domestic and foreign business groups have been urging greater relaxation of Japan's border controls for quite a while now, saying that the measures risk inflicting further economic pain. And you may remember, I had a very short segment on this before. In June, Japan opened up to tourists for the first time in 2 years, but they had to apply for visas and stick to guided tour packages, and the numbers were very small. Local media reported on Tuesday that Japan may raise a daily cap on inbound visitors from 20,000 to 50,000, but so far, according to the Prime Minister, no decision has been made on that. The border easing comes as Japan deals with a 7th wave of infections driven by the infectious BA4 and BA5 variants that have forced companies to idle production line and driven COVID-19 deaths to record numbers on Tuesday, 343. However, at the same time, the Prime Minister is pushing a living with corona strategy of weathering the surge without imposing restrictions on business or mobilities and focusing medical resources on the elderly and high-risk patients. And so, another country is loosening up here. And some good news for people that want to fly to Timor-Leste. I would be interested in going to Timor-Leste. Starting August 24th, a couple of days ago, Batik Air adds international flights to serve the Bali-Dili PP route. The operation of the Bali-Dili Bali, or PP route, is one of Batik Air's efforts in supporting the gradual recovery of the global economy for the Asian region, according to a spokesperson for Batik Air. He said the Bali-Dili PP flight offers advantages for business people and tourists, namely in that it shortens the time by traveling directly from Bali to Dili. And what about the planes on this route? There are going to be the Airbus A320 with 12 business class seats and 144 economy class seats, and the Boeing 737-800NG 12 business class seats and 156 economy seats. The fleet is a modern and new generation delivered from aircraft manufacturers. Each passenger gets food and drinks, in-flight meals, 20 kg free baggage. For economy class, 30 kg if you fly in business, and it is equipped with free in-flight entertainment on demand, as well as entertainment that can be accessed from mobile and tablets and laptops supported by Tripper. And I talked about Tripper the other day when I was talking about the new route coming and going to Jakarta, Bali, Jakarta, Bali. It's easy to download the Tripper application, and guests will be pampered throughout with available content such as various films of genres such as Indonesian, Hollywood, and Korean K-drama. And the entire fleet is equipped with high-efficiency particulate air filters, HEPA filters. This helps keep the air in the cabin clean, blah, blah, blah. This helps keep the air in the cabin clean and filters out more than 99.9% of viruses, germs, insects, and bacteria. Flights from Ngurah Airport in Bali will be served every Wednesday with flight number ID 8060 at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it lands in Dili at 10 o'clock local time. Return flights on the same day on Wednesday, flight ID 8061 at 11 o'clock local time. So an hour after the plane gets in, it's going to turn around and come back, and it gets to the airport here at 12 o'clock our time. So, good news. Anybody been to Dili recently? I would like to hear about it. And you know, as an anthropologist, I am big on museums, and I've talked about museums before. Well, 3 museums in Buleleng become pilot projects to improve services for people with disabilities. Good news. The 3 museums are the Buleleng Museum, the Gedong Kerja Lontar Museum, and the Sunda Kecil Museum right here in the harbor, not too far from me. And I uploaded a video about that just recently. The head of culture for Buleleng, Nyoman Wisandika, explained that the service program for museum visitors is fun for all people. They want to be inclusive. There was a meeting held recently about this, and it was aimed at gathering problems, obstacles faced in the facilities and the infrastructure for managing museums for persons with disability in Buleleng. Personnel for the museums in Buleleng will be trained through November so that they can welcome all tourists, whether they have disabilities or not. And so if you're up here, take a look at the museums. They are interesting, not really fascinating and not really up to date. Hopefully there will be some changes, but they're good things to see to get an idea of the local culture. And some good news on foot and mouth disease. Australian foot and mouth disease vaccine doses arrive in Indonesia. The first shipment of 1 million foot and mouth disease vaccine doses supplied by the Australian government has arrived in Indonesia, according to the Australian Foreign Affairs Minister. The Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry and Minister for Emergency Management, Murray Watt, said, "We've been able to match the doses to the FMD strain present in Indonesia. These doses will be highly effective in providing protection to Indonesian livestock." And he said that this is part of Australia's 3-pronged approach to keep Australia FMD free, as well as help neighboring countries deal with the outbreak, strengthening biosecurity borders, and enhancing preparedness domestically. He said in the months ahead, Australia will further supply Indonesia with $4.4 million in vaccines as part of a $10 million biosecurity package recently announced for Indonesia, thanks to Australia. And here is one. This is not a Bule behaving badly. This is a local behaving badly and really, really not cool. Viral, Caucasian woman angry because she caught a resident recording her ass on the beach. Okay, I'm doing a little experiment here. I just turned the fan on. It is so hot here. I am just dripping. And so I'm going to see, does the fan get picked up on this? Okay, so let's talk about this one. Viral foreign tourist who rages against a gentleman on social media became the spotlight of the Bali Provincial Tourism Office. The reason, the man whose identity has not been identified was caught recording the buttocks of female tourists on the beach. When I told this to my wife, she was really irritated. The head of the Bali Province Tourism Office, Chok Bagus Pamayun, said incidents such as this should not be repeated because they enter the realm of privacy. For this incident, he will also coordinate with local tourism office and indigenous villages offices. He said, "I want to ask first. I don't know the location. If I know, I will coordinate with the local tourism office first to check again. If it is indeed under the auspices of the traditional village, we will communicate with them." Incidents like this are judged to be due to a lack of education for local residents, he said. Fear that this will tarnish the name of Bali tourism in the eyes of the world. And he concluded, let's not destroy the image of tourism. Bali as a destination is not only for tourists, but for ourselves in our respective environments, so as not to do things that harm us all. After all, Bali depends on tourism, so let's work together to maintain it according to the rules. Yeah, no taking pictures of women's butts on the beach. Jeez, what an idiot. You got internet, man, you can find all the porn you want. You don't need to be photographing women who are out having a good time. And that is all for today. If you didn't see my Singaraja Snippets video, Zoe and I out at the harbor the other day on Sunday, messing around. Here's a link to it up here. Thank you, Jim, for telling me that not able to see when I say watch my wife's video and I point up here that doesn't show up for everybody. So there's a link down below in the description to my wife's, and we're doing a video now. I don't know if it's going to be up or not by the time this gets out, which one is going to be first, but she made this chicken thing today. It was so good, and no chilies in it whatsoever. Kind of kind of sweet tasting because there's coconut milk in there. And then, well, a lot of other stuff. As usual, ingredients are always listed. So if you haven't seen my wife's channel, you can take a look up here, or if you can't find that, you can take a look down at the link below. And that is it. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe. And I will see you on Wednesday. I hope. I have an important doctor's appointment on Tuesday night. If it does not go well, you might not see me on Wednesday. Let's hope it goes well. Otherwise, I'll see you on Friday.